My name is James Rohn, and if you've ever wondered whether quiet people are the strongest people, this story will change how you see silence forever. There is a kind of trust that cannot be rushed, no matter how much a person wants it to happen faster. It has to be built the way a house is built, one board at a time, with patience and care and a willingness to keep showing up even when nothing is being said. This is the first thing worth sitting with. Cade never once demanded that Clara explain herself. He never cornered her with questions about her past, never made her feel like she owed him an account of every wound she carried. Instead, he communicated through the language of small, consistent actions. He fixed a hinge on her door that had been broken long before she arrived, not because she asked him to, but because he noticed it bothered her comfort and quietly repaired it during an hour when no one was watching. He stepped in when a loud, presumptuous neighbor looked at her the wrong way, handling it with a few private words rather than a scene. He gave her room to set her own pace, never pushing, never pressuring, simply being present and reliable day after day. This is what real trust looks like in practice. It is not built through grand declarations or promises. It is built through the accumulation of small moments where someone proves, again and again, that they can be counted on. Words are cheap. Anyone can say the right thing in the right moment. But actions, especially the quiet, unglamorous kind that nobody applauds, are the true currency of trust. When you think about the relationships in your own life that feel the most secure, chances are they were not built on grand gestures but on someone consistently showing up, listening without judgment, and respecting your boundaries until you were ready to lower them yourself. That is what Cade offered Clara, and it is why, eventually, she chose to open up to him completely. Trust given too quickly is often trust misplaced, but trust earned slowly, through patience and demonstrated character, becomes something unshakable. This is a principle that applies far beyond the world of this particular story. In friendships, in business partnerships, in families, the people who earn our deepest trust are rarely the ones who talk the biggest game. They are the ones who quietly do what they say they will do, who respect our pace even when it frustrates them, and who let their consistency speak louder than any promise ever could. Clara had been burned before by someone who used beautiful words and empty promises to manipulate her, so she had every reason to be guarded around anyone who spoke smoothly. But Cade was different precisely because he did not try to win her over with charm or persuasion. He simply lived his values in front of her, day after day, and let her draw her own conclusions. That is the kind of trust worth building in your own life, and it is the kind of person worth becoming. For the people around you, someone whose actions are so consistent that words become almost unnecessary. The second thing this story teaches us is that shame does not have to be a life sentence. Clara arrived in Wyoming carrying something heavy, a painful history from Denver where a man she trusted, a man who spoke of a future together for 3 years, ultimately chose someone else and had her dismissed without so much as a proper reference. That kind of betrayal does not just hurt in the moment. It leaves behind a residue of shame that can follow a person for years, whispering that they were somehow foolish or unworthy, that they should have known better, that the humiliation was deserved. Many people carry exactly this kind of weight, not from a frontier romance, but from real disappointments in their own lives, failed relationships, professional setbacks, family conflicts, moments where they were hurt by someone they trusted. The instinct in those moments is often to hide the story, to bury it so deep that no one can use it against you. But Clara's journey shows us a different path. She did not pretend the past never happened. She did not perform an identity that erased her history. Instead, she carried her story quietly until she was ready. And when the moment came, when the man who had once betrayed her tried to weaponize that same story against her in a room full of strangers, she made a choice that changed everything. She took the narrative back into her own hands. Rather than letting Renwick control how her story would be told, she stood up and told it herself, plainly and without apology. She named exactly what happened, that she had been strung along, that she had been discarded, and that she had come to Wyoming to stop being ashamed of surviving something that was never her fault in the first place. This moment is the emotional center of the entire story, because it demonstrates a truth many people need to hear. Shame only has power over you as long as you let someone else hold the pen on your own story. The instant Clara spoke her truth aloud, in her own words, on her own terms, She took that power away from Renwick completely. He had nothing left to threaten her with because there was no secret left to expose. This is an incredibly important lesson for anyone who has ever felt haunted by a past mistake or a past humiliation. The people who try to use your history against you only have leverage as long as silence protects their version of events. The moment you speak your own truth honestly, without flinching and without excessive apology, you take back your power. Shame thrives in secrecy. It withers in the light of honest acknowledgement. Clara's willingness to name her pain in front of an entire room was not an act of weakness. It was one of the bravest things a person can do. And it is the reason she walked out of that social lighter than she walked in, free of a burden she had been carrying for years. The third and final point this story offers is about what genuine support actually looks like when it matters most. So often, people believe that being a good partner, friend, or family member means waiting to be asked for help, respecting boundaries to the point of passivity, staying quiet even when someone you care about is clearly struggling. But Cade shows us something different. When Renwick arrived at the ranch and later tried to publicly humiliate Clara at the social, Cade did not wait for permission to act. He did not pull her aside afterward to ask if she wanted him to intervene. He simply moved. He crossed the room and stood beside her, close enough that his presence alone changed the entire dynamic of the confrontation, and he said only what needed to be said. Nothing more, nothing performative. I think that is enough. 4 words spoken quietly, backed by years of quiet reputation in that county, were enough to end the threat entirely. This is what real support looks like. It does not always come as a question. Sometimes the people who care about us most understand, almost instinctively, that in certain moments, asking would be its own kind of burden. Clara did not need to be asked whether she wanted defending. She needed someone who trusted her enough to know she could speak for herself, while also making it clear, through his simple presence, that she did not have to face the moment entirely alone. That is a difficult balance to strike, and Cade managed it perfectly. He did not speak over her. He let her tell her own story in her own words first, and only stepped in once it was clear the threat needed to be shut down entirely. This is the difference between rescuing someone and standing with them. Cade never tried to be Clara's savior. He never positioned himself as the hero of her story. He simply made sure she knew, through consistent and reliable presence, that she did not have to carry every hard moment by herself. This is the kind of support worth offering the people in our own lives, not swooping in to fix everything before they have the chance to stand on their own, but staying close enough that when the moment truly calls for it, our presence alone can speak louder than any promise ever could.